I think there's something insidious about the word consumer these days. I feel like it has been used so often that people are kind of brainwashed into truly only seeing themselves as consumers, while secretly they have been creatives in the sense of the content of their mind the whole time. And by that I mean thought is the most important content. And when you've consumed so much, it has rewired your brain and retrained associations into you reproducing what you consumed, and you have this like false belief that you are taking an item or a message, maybe a TV show, and you are just passively consuming it. When you are actually starting to react. And an example of this will be if you see a tweet or a video and someone has a particular circumstance, and then you go to the comments and someone has replied to undermine the content with a what if scenario or a correction, because they have been trained to be problem finding instead of solution oriented. Like, I watched a video of a cat, and you go to the comments, and everyone's kind of like fine with it, or they're on edge. There's like this phantom edge where you know that someone else is going to call this animal abuse, or jump to conclusions and take it way overboard when it's just supposed to be like a funny thing. So there's like a tenseness in the comments even enjoying it, and then someone in the comments says like, this is animal abuse, you shouldn't do that, and then everyone kind of jumps them and is like, oh, I spotted like the joy sucker, like of course like somebody was going to call this animal abuse. That person probably sees themselves as a consumer solely without realizing that they have become a content creator. Like, all your mind is content created. And there's just something about insisting that we're consumers all the time, and we don't have the time to be content creators or creatives or artists, that I feel like is used against us. Like, to a certain point, it was true, but I think when it's overdone, you stop interrogating that thought, and you also let yourself be used in a way where it's like you give your power away by feeling so helpless and hopeless and small that they convince you eventually of what you are, even as you're criticizing it. Like, a lot of people, they understand that they're consumers and they don't like it, so they criticize and critique reality, and without like going that further step and just making a claim on their own body. Like, I wouldn't say I physically create anything right now, but right now I am creating thoughts, and there is it might be passive, it might be subconscious, it might be overlooked, but when you are creating the algorithms of all your social medias and such, that is a process of both, consuming and creating. It's one and the same. And I think people forget that. So when they get on the consumer side, they start feeling gross and critiquing it as if, you know, they'll blame capitalism instead of realizing that they themselves are in control of their algorithm. I was listening to, I think it might have been the Distributist or something else. It was like MGTOW versus traditionalist conversation. And of course, it was about marriage and how there's no benefits, quote unquote, today. And I feel like the conversation has been forgetting the covenant of marriage. And what if you do see marriage beyond paper? I thought to myself, no fault divorce is basically the birth control of marriage, or I guess the abortion of marriage. And I feel like men didn't complain for longer than they admit. I think I almost feel like in general all norms were exploited by certain generations and flipped. So it wasn't just the housing market. It wasn't just, pensions or like boomers taking up work and taking up experience and soaking in like all the excess potential and wealth. I think, maybe they did that with marriage as well. And now men are in the state of kind of, finger wagging at women that they ruined it when it could have been like both parties. I just don't get how men can be so sex obsessed, but then not not realize or give credit to that playing an aspect in the dating world now, besides, playing Chad in the top 20% or whatever. It's like they don't face their own gender. Like men aren't lecturing men in the way of like you did this, like you ruined it because you couldn't hold your ground, you weren't a real man. I mean, they do this now, kind of like generations would do this within generations, or like the older would do this to the younger, like you are such a simp. It's unbalanced accountability. It's like all of the men, they just get together to talk about women, to talk shit about women, but none of them are talking about each other because I guess they're all angels and they were all like hardworking, blue collared, in 30-year-old marriages with a wife left. Like everything is just a picture perfect scenario. And this is what I mean about not really understanding the point of red pill to an extent because they don't necessarily they don't go out and protest in the way that feminists do. And I made a comment about this, and some man was like, "Yeah, we don't protest because you're not going to listen anyway," or something stupid like. I don't see red pillars interviewing and donating to men's rights activists. I don't see them advocating for what they're complaining about. So they talk about alimony and child custody and no fault divorce, but no one is actually petitioning for those things to change. It's all a conversation, and it's all. I will consider that a grift, even if you're putting out good content, because your solution is so individualized, and it's like you want the power of a group, or you hate not having power compared to feminists, but your whole concept is men going their own way. So everyone props up being isolated and like fishing on their own and hiking on their own and living on their own. And then when they're lonely, they can get together online and be part of this like group that doesn't actually do anything. And I say it's missing because I have not researched like every corner of a Met Gal, but out of what I've seen in like the last 6 months of videos that I've watched and comments that I've read, no one is suggesting like a foundation, like a link. So you just have a bunch of like 40 and 50-year-olds with girlfriends um, regurgitating like dating statistics and encouraging men to stay alone even though they have a GF. And that just reminds me of feminism and the dangers of making your personal life into a movement or thinking that you're actually aligned or a part of something when at the same time people are doing the opposite. So people are very, or men will be very red pillar, but have a GF and tell you not to, like, you need to define the risks for yourself. And I believe, understand, we all have an opinion and belief on what life is and what death is, and if there's a God or not, if it matters or not. So I just see the dangers of putting your own feelings aside in order to be part of the clique, in order to not feel like a hypocrite, while there are plenty of hypocrites and the people making the most money off of your feelings have what you want. Like, to be a red pillar and have a wife and to have kids, but then to tell other people they're not going to make it is, that's just dangerous to me because people will believe it, and I don't want more people to believe that they are truly in a group when we are all made up of different circumstances and different insecurities and different advantages. So to generalize so much and to constantly use data that's also generalized, like there are always pockets, like America in general, so big. There are pockets of different types of communities and beliefs and ways of living everywhere. So I feel like we should go more by our local environments than this constant, um, it's just like the never ending dead end that people put themselves in and thinking that you can always go to a different place. Or truly believing everyone is found in the statistics. Like, I had a moment where I was listening to the Digital Archipelago podcast, and once again, the joke is always like, no women are listening to this. Like, at 1.3% of women that listen to this, and I'm getting like I guess a small joy. I really have been in a more, I want to say, secretive mode, just because I haven't been on social media as much, and I used to really want people to hear what I had to say because I knew no one was thinking in the ways that I was thinking. And for the most part, if I like something or mention something, I swear it blows up within like months or like years later. Um, so I've always gotten frustrated when I like something and it seems like no one is paying attention, and then suddenly like everyone is paying attention. And eventually you get tired of that, and I just got tired of trying to control the responses and trying to control the kind of validation of, I felt like I was putting in work, but the work was enjoyment and the work was in having taste. And when that's not reflected back because people are waiting for trends to tell them what to like. You get frustrated, but then I just kind of stopped caring about, wanting people to hear a song or to read an article or to understand how, their hypocrisy. Like liberals that don't hold Biden or Harris accountable. Every time they would do something stupid, I would share the video, and it just got like zero interaction. And then a couple months ago, it became like the Harris meme of her laughing, or of her talking in loops that don't make sense. And then like everyone was like, "Oh yeah," like they turned it into a meme instead of making it accountable. It just became like, "Oh, she's like funny. She's like the aunt, the wine aunt on drugs. She doesn't know where she is." Um, Same thing with like food prices. Like months and months ago, I took a picture of my receipt, and I've always been like more subtle, like thanks Joe Biden, and zero interaction. And now it's like liberals are finally talking about inflation, but they don't want to blame anyone, and it's kind of become more like memes about eggs and how like you're a rich person could have a lot of eggs, and it just lacks once again accountability. They only interact with something if they can turn it into a parody, because and then they also want to act like they're not privileged. But I feel like these are circumstances in which you can joke more about if you're, financially secure. Like, not to be woe is me, because I'm making choices and I've been trying to save for a large expense. So today I just had, for dinner, I had like a can of corn. And it's not a fun like parody thing, it's just a matter of fact. But I won't be able to share that because it's too earnest and, it's too pitiful for them. You have to make like a fun narrative out of the harshness in order for them to uh, really look at it. It's interesting seeing these types of people donate or attempt to help out others while ignoring the actual people like in their vicinity. Like I remember several years ago when uh, my family was having a harder time, and I just felt like there was never any food, and I was starving. Ironically, the only thing we had were like eggs, and I remember not wanting eggs for like a year after this. I just had so many eggs, but I was like asking for donations online and expecting or thinking, maybe like my friends would see, and I got nothing. But then they'll also talk about like on Instagram like who they're donating to. Like they donate to like the abortion clinic, and it's just like, how are you donating to Black Lives Matter when you have a friend of that race and you're not like helping that specific for specific needs? Um, like right now, I have a relative that is going to juvenile detention centers or something and spreading the gospel and getting teens to convert. Well, I also have another relative that is literally um, locked up for a crime. I won't say what, but it's just like a big crime. And just that ability to like understand them. Sometimes things are too close for comfort. Um, but it's just wild to see instances in which people don't have the ability to help who's closest to them, or for some reason don't like it, and they need to like go out of their way to help strangers in the same problem. I'm not sure if I was going anywhere in particular with that, or if I was just sharing a story, but I guess it helps me expect less and yeah, just have less trust and belief and energy outside of myself, and thinking that we're all on the same page. So yeah, like the more I keep to myself, the more I feel like I'm in the conversation of trolling with the universe. Like I'm trolling the universe, and the universe is trolling me because I'm listening to a podcast and they're saying I don't exist again, and it's like mentioning this. I'm not saying it's like it's that deep, but to know you're like an outsider, and I feel like these things aren't even that hard to find. So when I find them, and they're like, women would never find this. I don't know. It's a funny thing. Like I wish I could speak more or be more open, and people could talk more about how they find things. But I wish there were more people that also weren't so attached to labels or in the thick of it. Like I consume it, but I still don't assign myself to a label, like a political label, a religion, or a type of movement, like a dirtbag leftist or extended right, things like that. It's like I'm casual, but also like I'm collecting the terms and the people and understanding like the podcast networks. And there's a sense of enjoyment because it's like purposely becoming the glitch in the matrix or the glitch in life. And not giving all my cards away. Like there's something fulfilling about appearing and no one really having any idea what you are. Or the ability to secretly not be anything anyway. Because I think everyone assumes that everyone has a political label or very strong beliefs and interests. And especially if you have some kind of minority thing, if you're a woman, if you're POC, even if like you're gay, but there are gay people that are anti-trans and um, basically feel like there are real gay people and there are fake gay people. I think it gives back a sense of respect or ownership of myself in the way where people can make a comment and I can truly say you don't know me. You don't know anything about me. You know bits and pieces, but I can always change anyway. I can always shift. You can't pin me down. So I can never be the enemy and I can never be the love. And there's a sense of freedom in that. That's almost like giddy because we have been under such like the suppression of being cancelable and controlled. The truth of the matter is people don't hate you enough to stop you, and people don't love you enough to help you. And 99% of the time. So to be hurt by comment or belief or perception, I mean, for a couple of seconds or minutes, I can be frustrated, but other than that, it's kind of useless. Because they want their words to mean so much, but you yourself only take it to an extent. Especially if they don't like you. I think judgment is the most, like, scalding, offensive, like, hurtful thing that they can do. I know it'll literally just be a text of words, and all they're saying is they're better. And of course they would say that because everyone wants to be better. So in a way, I feel like it backwards or like reflects the insecurity because like, oh, but I'm helping you feel better about yourself. So you are getting something out of the interaction. And by getting something out of the interaction, you're kind of weak. Or getting something out of the critique to boost yourself. Or just like the ego, just like the concept of thinking and judging. Like listening to that podcast about is marriage worth it or not? and kind of thinking the point is people want to be happy. Like underneath all the evidence and all the feelings, like it's just like I don't know if this is cliche, but like a hurt little child that wants to be loved. Like everyone just wants love and wants to be happy, and then they like choose sides against what's making them unhappy, which is like really basic. But I think it should be emphasized more, especially in these kinds of communities and groups where people have become so, by people, mostly men, intellectualized and kind of like overly proud of themselves because I don't know, they have like statistics and they have worked on themselves, like they go to the gym, you know, they're high value men, but it's all just a war to feel better. Maybe not to the extent of hedonism, but I think it's possible to feel good by being virtuous, or at least thinking you are. And um, there can be a natural high to that. I don't know. It's like people are taking themselves too seriously while also being obviously a joke, or they say that the left is like sunk in irony and is irredeemable. And then also they have like Pepe the Frog memes, like so many memes, and talking about like e-girls and incels, like all these like characters. There's this whole game in, you know, Red Pillars up games, alt right has games. The games are not escapable. I think that's just human nature. Or eventually everything becomes cringe, especially if it's a group. Because you think to yourself, like, okay, we're gonna be a real group, we're gonna be an earnest group, we're gonna be the opposite of that ugly group, and we're gonna change, and then it's so cringy, it's inherent. And I'll be listening, it's like every day I listen to a new way, a new way of asking if God exists, or is real, or, and then it's just like this question again, and they just look like thousands of years of perceptions and people still act like that they're the first ever, you know, question existence. And like that just makes me go crazy. It just makes me go crazy to, you know, once again I put it on myself because I'm continuously listening to these conversations, but the same topics coming up over and over again. It's just like basic discomfort in existence and not having the answers, and then or arguing over the answers like every day. How do I emphasize this enough that it's just every day? Every day. And why do we think that we're going to come to a conclusion? That we are the ones that are going to come to a conclusion? Like, I feel like in a sense sometimes I've literally wasted my life because I've thought to myself like, I can't live right now. Like, I need to find the answer. I need to fear God. You know, this is the priority. And that's such a stressful way to live. And it's so ingrained in you. It's like impossible to stop. It's literally part of your limb, or for me at least, it's like part of my body. This, I guess you could say, seeking. I try not to. I feel like I've really toned it down consciously, but it's still there. Or you see it, you just see it everywhere. It's like even if I don't, somebody else is. Like even if I'm not worried about it, I'll listen to the conversation, and clearly, like that is the actual topic. Like underneath all the words is just like the why of it all. So it's the insanity of the inescapableness and attempting to find like a new scenery, and everything is just camouflaged, and it was this horrible dead end question the entire time. Like, it is a horror story. I don't know if that's being too dramatic or like blasphemous or something, but you just want things to appear as they are, and it's constantly like some secrets, like insecurity, fear of death, and then worse, it's people that think they know, and it will be people in their 20s, and like everyone is so self-righteous. You know, put it on a front because you want to get paid, or put it on a front because you need the conversation to keep going, so you're just constantly making up new things to talk about, or talking about the same thing, and consistently wanting credit, and adding on to the lore. Just no, like once again, no forward thinking, just expectations and considering the worst. Well, also, you know, some of these people are religious now or converting. That, you know, that fraction of like right leaning, and they'll just constantly laughing at one side, like left or liberals, but you know, also talk about the holidays they're celebrating, or like going to church, and it's like, wouldn't you be praying for the people that you don't like, right? So that would be interesting to see if there was just like a podcast episode where all the religious rights got together and they like actively like prayed aloud, and everyone like created their own prayer. That'd actually be cute. Um, you know, do something that actually reflects your beliefs in a quote unquote productive manner, rather than just being a cool person. Like, oh, I'm the cool subversive podcaster. Like, I converted to Catholicism. Excuse me, Catholicism, and you know, Pepe the meme with a cross. Ironically, being immature or something like. They would call it the liberals for having strange, terrible cartoons, but they can't even type out a prayer, their own prayer, and have that be the thing. It has to be the frog image. And maybe I just use this as a cope myself and see other people's loopholes so I don't have to join the race and attempt to, you know, create a personality and to be in an in group. So I'm able to be a hypocrite myself or have faults. But it's also just an exercise in reminding myself that I can't follow anyone, and we're not meant to follow other people. And we can be close to them, but the truth is we're just too much of individuals. Like, to share a story and have my life be dictated by a stranger and has an opinion about me. You can never know everyone's motives. I'm just consistently thinking, like, I don't know what these people really want, or the things that they want are covered. Like, they're online and it looks like they're helping, but also that helping is just helping themselves. Like, if they're giving out a lot of advice, maybe they feel some type of guilt or savior complex because things went wrong in their life. So they get personal fulfillment, and that aids them in creating an image, regardless of good or not. Nothing is as it seems. And it's probably what I don't also take myself as personal anymore. Because I think there are also things about myself where I don't know. It's like nothing is as it seems for myself. Like sometimes I don't think even I know what I'm doing for what reasons. And I'm not sure if it's always, if the point is to know all the time. Like I'm gonna post this, I'm making these videos, but it's not like I've been advertising them or trying to gain following. It's just something to put out for someone to find by chance. Maybe I'm creating a miracle by doing this. Like I'm just creating a very minuscule like possibility, and I think there's beauty in that, and not just like trying to overtake and become like an industry of myself and have like a brand. At the same time, I don't have comments open, so it's kind of like, why is she doing this? Like, who is this for? Are we supposed to interact with her? I was thinking a couple days ago because I was getting overwhelmed about just the feeling of so many realities and the layers on top of each other. Basically, like the divisions in my mind, the divisions of my, it's like the fractals. And I was thinking, like, oh, like, I wish there was just something, everything was like linear again. Like, I wish everything made sense. I wish everything was a string upon itself and divided and separated so I could see clearly. And then I thought to myself, like, I think God is like androgynous, like an androgynous schizophrenic. And I was like, wait, what if what I'm feeling right now is literally God? You know, I feel like my whole head is just everywhere, everything everywhere all at once, the movie. And what I'm seeking, like, what if we were that? Like, we complain that we can only have one life and do certain things. I feel like God is a schizophrenic that wish that all its ideas were separated and everything could exist. And that just happened to be like infinite possibilities. So he created all of this and he created me and you. And we were all gonna be like our own lines. It was all separate to it. And then suddenly like it wasn't. So God wanted what I wanted, and that's why I was created to be this separate being. And now maybe it's just like the expansion of consciousness and the process of ascending in which I have no choice but to take in um, everything and to become God again. And the expansion like gets to me. I think that's ironic because it's like, oh, I wish God could just make it clear. But then when you think as God, like nothing is clear because it is all so entangled, and yet that is clarity, that it is one in all of its tangledness.